After 8 years of the nomadic life, involving crossing oceans in a 34-foot Sabre, refitting an aluminum boat, and then taking that to the Arctic Circle, we're back at it again with a brand new build. This is Matt, and I'm Jessica. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and join us every week as we start our newest project of building a 42-foot catamaran from the ground up.
Over the past couple of weeks, working in the owner's side of the boat, the head area, the bathroom of the boat, we've been using this awesome cardboard template from Amazon, of course, just to try to get an idea of where the head will be located. We know, given its width and its length, if we put it out so it's perpendicular to the center line of the boat, it ends up limiting that space that we get through walk-through area. The way Matt's Cruise is doing it on the production versions are they've kind of angled it. In doing that, the countertop then gets kind of angled, so it goes straight back and then comes across an angle on that same kind of plane. I really wanted to wait until we got our toilet in so we could measure it out and figure out what works well for us. So a couple of days ago, we went to Vetus headquarters, the US headquarters in Hanover, Maryland, and we picked up our new toilet, one of them at least. So this way we could kind of see and build everything around that particular toilet, that particular model. So that's my process today, is I'm going to temporarily put the toilet in place, figure out how high of a base I want to make for it. And if we raise it up a little bit, as you can see, there's this kind of chamfer, this curved piece here. We might be able to get it so the bowl hangs out a little bit over that edge, which gives us more floor space too. Not 100% sure we're going to be able to do that, but that's why we have the toilet, so we can actually make sure we're doing this all right. And then once we figure out that angle that we want to use, now we can start doing our counter, our vanity over on this side. So that is the process for today. It's really, really cold out, so it's a perfect day to not be glassing. Even with our heaters and stuff running, it's better just to work on stuff like that, and that's what I'm gonna do. Get this thing out of the way now. Oh, it just squeezed through. This is one of those ta-da moments. Ta-da! Toilet seat, manual. That is the important part now. Okay. But as you can kind of see, the way this works, there's this cutout here. So the back of the toilet, the back part of it, kind of sticks out and protrudes over the top of this base. This is the reason why I chose this model in particular. It's actually really lightweight, which is awesome. They've done a really good job in getting rid of the stuff that's not necessary. If you notice, this little flange or this piece comes over, protrudes over the back side of it. The idea is hopefully we can raise this up high enough that I can stick that, even if it's an inch, over that curve of this hull. That gains us an inch of floor space. Basically, we can tuck that back even further. So first attempt with the orientation, it's just a 5-inch box that I had lying around. This puts the actual seat the seat height at about 18 inches, which is the height of a typical dining room chair. One of the things I have to be conscious of is the toilet seat when it goes to the upright position as to where it's going to impact this wall, and to make sure that it can actually fully open without, being stuck at an angle like this type of thing. That roughly a 45-degree angle off of this bulkhead. Right now, the seat works really well, but I don't love it sitting like that. When you're sitting on this and you have that open, you're going to be pressing against that if it's basically at a 90 degree. So I think the idea is to be like a 105, 110 of clearance for the seat to actually go back. Hitting against this wall, that doesn't work. the option is to kind of move it inboard this way, a bigger gap over here, and now we can get to that proper angle there. Thing is that off of our center line running right down, basically right through me, this still protrudes in about 4 inches into our hallway. So the option is to rotate this further, still get the ability to open that up, and now we've reduced that overlap here to about 3 inches, which is a lot more comfortable with that. Negative with that is we're going to have a counter coming this direction, coming down, and then a slight angle in here, kind of that edge of it. The more that we rotate this, the further that we have to push this bulkhead or this area forward, that vanity forward. We reduce the countertop space, we reduce, of course, the vanity itself. So it's a balance here, and it's going to take me a while to figure out what's going to work best for her and I. The correct answer is to get Jessica in here and have her take a look at it.
The reach around test.
Yeah. It's practical, it's not elegant, but whatever. Quit watching.
How much elbow room is there?
Yeah, see, that's the problem though, is you do get into your elbow, it ends up hitting the bulkhead.
Yeah.
Or further away from the wall. Yeah, I mean that's... Shut up!
Toilet placement. These are the questions we ask ourselves.
It is actually important though.
It is very important.
Yeah.
You spend every day of your life on there.
6 1/4. Size-wise, I mean, that seems the right amount of space on side to side.
Mm-hmm. So there's enough room to do your business.
There's enough room to do business. The Charmin bears would be happy. This has been 3 hours now. I have been moving a toilet around. It's of course, by the time we spend all the effort to build the base and go through everything, we need to make sure that we're doing this right, because if we have to go through and change this later on, then there are all kinds of lost time spent doing that. Big thing was finding an appropriate height. So what we did is we raised it up to, I think we're 19 1/4 now. The other thing too was making sure that we had enough clearance on the side, and we put in basically the door to see what the area felt like when you actually had this door enclosed. But now we found it. We think this is going to be great for us. We think it's the right angle. And what we want to do is make sure we mark this, so when I build this base, we're not going to lose that and have to start over that process again. So what we did is just laser level, using it just as the laser part of it, and sight down the center line of the toilet, where it falls along this chamfered panel and where it falls here. Now, when it comes time to, after I build this base, we can set this thing up again, shoot down that line, and align that toilet exactly the way that we figured works well for us.
A few months ago, you'll have seen that we attended the Annapolis Boat Show, which gave the two of us a great chance to get aboard a number of amazing catamarans. Big ones, new ones, just kind of get ideas of things that we liked that we might be able to bring aboard ours, a few things that we didn't like. And although the production version of ours, the Max Cruise, unfortunately did not make it to that, there was another one that we were really looking forward to getting aboard, but also was just not ready for the show, and that was the Vision 444. But luckily for us, we know the owners, Thomas and Terry, and they were very kind and let us come aboard to take a personal little tour before taking their Vision 444 Kontiki down to the Caribbean for the winter.
Yeah, one of the reasons why we really wanted to get aboard this boat is this is the type of build that is very similar to what Max Cruise or what ours is going to be built as. It's all foam cored. Every single piece, every piece of furniture is foam cored as well. Everything's glass to the hull. I don't even know, Vision does a really good job of posting their build photos on their website. So even before we started our process, and before we even met Thomas and Terry, I have a folder of probably 150, 200 photos of their actual build for their boat. So I kind of knew all the little details, the ins and outs, the behind the scenes stuff before I even met them or saw the boat in person. So it was a little interesting.
So Matt and I will kind of jump back and forth of things that stood out to us. Of course, we have differences of what we're interested in. Matt loves poking in the cabinets and in the bilges and all of that. And of course, mine is a little bit more design. So with the Vision on the owner's hull, I was kind of able to compare that a little bit to what ours is going to be like, because you come down the steps and you have the owner's berth at the aft end. I think queen size bed for them too. Yeah. And then as you work your way forward, there's cabinetry and leading into the owner's head. Theirs is a little special because some of that sail locker space that we have that you access from the exterior of the boat, where the Hall of Fame is, theirs is actually accessible within the boat, and it's kind of a workshop. So that was different, but just kind of, seeing the flow, and although their hulls are a bit wider than ours, kind of just like getting the feeling of what it would be like on a similar sized boat to ours and how everything did lay out. And it was just beautiful. It was very simple but classic. I loved, again, mine is kind of like more design. I'm thinking that part of it. Well, Matt's doing plumbing, electrical,
yeah.
But how they just incorporated different colors and different finishes. So
they did a really good job of that, having the darker tones, lighter tones. Some of the bulkheads they actually emphasized instead of just trying to hide like you do normally by making them a darker finish on it. They did a really, really good job with that.
And after having gone to the Annapolis show, where again the Kinetic was a personal favorite from mine, and seeing how they faired out every surface, like the Vision did a great job of some fairing and I think some vinyls, which kind of gave me an idea as I'm about to start the fairing process myself. That's my job of what I think I can accomplish and like what I might be able to cover up with other materials.
And because I've seen the photos, the behind the scenes of the build, I could tell where things were veneered over. So they're foam cored composite panels that they kind of curve, bent into shape along some of these surfaces, and then put veneer directly over the top of that. So it was neat being able to see that whole process from beginning to end, really. And then along the hull sides, which is actually called the ceiling, the sides they ended up using a vinyl liner that covered all of those issues, the things that Jess and I are going to be spending an absolute ton amount of time fairing out. They covered with vinyl, so a little easier of a process. And we're probably going to do a very similar thing where we're going to bounce back and forth into some things being covered with a liner, some things being fully exposed. A lot of it's weight. A lot of it for us is going to be time and not having to go through and fair it out as well. So it did give us a ton of ideas there. With construction, they did a phenomenal job.
Yes,
from inside, outside, every single surface, every single thing was well designed, well executed. They went through in the little areas behind the scenes. You looked as far as you could, peering into spaces, into cabinets and stuff like that, and they were all very, very well finished, which it seems to be a common theme I'm seeing now. It used to be that any surface that wasn't exposed was really roughly done. In this day and age, that doesn't seem to fly, and almost all the surfaces are perfect. They look like really well finished areas, and so I'm seeing that. I saw that in the Balance, saw that in the Kinetic, of course. HH, of course, was that way, but even things like some of the areas of the Outremer that were not finished, that's more of the old school way of doing it, and it seems to be now that they're going through and just fairing everything out and making it look beautiful.
And then I know one thing that personally we were really looking forward to getting on the Vision is because we had talked about doing a nav desk in the rear. So they have theirs as soon as you walk in over the sill from the cockpit.
That's such a cool setup.
Yeah, and we wanted to see if it was possible for us. Like, I think we end up doing some measuring to see.
It's not.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not. It's great for the vision.
Yeah.
It will not work for us.
No, we don't have the length or the depth to be able to do that same type of thing, but it's a really neat idea. Still having that forward-facing nav desk, but having it aft. So along that forward bulkhead, you can still have a full settee. They were able to put some more storage along there. It really worked well within their space. It's just, of course, their dimensions are a little bit narrower, the width. For their space, but they're longer, deeper than what ours are. Ours is the exact opposite. So ours is a little bit shallower, but quite a bit wider through that area.
But their salon was a great setup. They do, again, have what we were talking about on the two different balances, the 482 and the 526 of raising up the settees a little bit, which is going to give us that great visibility out of our windows.
Yep, so similar setup there. They ended up doing a U-shape on theirs, which I think works well for the settee. And as Jess was mentioning, down in the halls, they're quite a bit wider halls than what we have. So the ideas, the way that they had that laid out, doesn't necessarily transfer over to us. And we talked about that in the last episode, where they have really nice setup with being able to raise up the full berth, the full bed, but it's mostly because theirs is a lot lower than what ours are. Ours, to get the width to have that full queen bed, has to be up higher.
Raised up, yeah.
So it just doesn't quite translate over. But the big idea was, again, for me, was getting aboard and seeing the fit and finish, how they did that. They have white oak rift cut veneer throughout the boat, which was the direction that we're thinking of going as well. So we were able to see that in person and see like the oiled finish on it. So very similar to how we were doing that. Of course, we can then borrow some of their ideas of how they did their coloring, as Jess was discussing. There's just a lot of really, really good ideas we pulled from that. One of the neatest was, and I hope we got video of, was the solar panels.
Oh yes, the solar panels.
Where they articulate, so you can still gain access to the boom as needed, but you are able to put in full solid solar panels, the glass panels, instead of having to do just flexible panels. Was really, really good integration with that. And just the helm setup was really comfortable, it seemed. Love that. You can't really talk about the vision without talking about the way that the side axis is from the dock, being able to flip down this panel to be able to walk aboard kind of its own little gangplank.
So instead of being at the dock and kind of trying to slide around the hull to the back swim step, this just has something that opens right down, and you kind of, I'm sure you probably still put a step between the dock.
Yeah.
And that.
It's such a great idea when you're on an area that doesn't have floating docks necessarily, as long as it doesn't go up too high. Or if you're on a floating dock, just having that easy access back and forth. And the way the original design was is first, I think, 2 hulls for this boat, or first hull at least, was designed for someone with a wheelchair. Having access to that. And as the owners saw that, the other buyers saw that, they figured, well, I mean, it's such a great idea, having that easy access.
Yeah, it doesn't need just to be for wheelchair access. It can be for anybody.
So they ended up transferring that over to the rest of the builds, and I absolutely love that. Not something that we can suddenly put into this build structurally. It's got to be designed around for that, so not something that you can just chop open an area and do that.
And then they also had bars to close off the swim steps when you're on passage if you want to. You just kind of like slide it out, twist it across, and then...
Instead of just having lifelines, you have actually a solid bar that goes across there. And again, a really cool idea. Not something, because the way that their aft is set up, we can't do that on ours. Ours is a completely different setup there, and there's no place for the bars to actually slide into, so we wouldn't be able to do that. We have to do normal lifelines, but it was neat seeing this thought process and seeing how they integrated these new items that I hadn't seen prior.
With the port guest hall, though, theirs is set up a little bit different than ours, where we couldn't really take too many ideas. Their aft berth was fore and aft facing like ours is as well, but their forward bunk, instead of being like our V berth, theirs is a transverse, which kind of goes under,
over the bridge deck.
Yeah. So couldn't really take any ideas there. And then they had, I think, 2 heads on that side, tucked, again, wider holes, so they could still tuck the head into the hallway portion. But just overall, it's a beautiful boat. I mean, I'm really, really excited for the Max Cruise that we're building, but looking at other catamarans, the Vision is still a favorite of mine, so.
Yeah, I think it's so well designed and so well built. I love the looks of it too. It's a mix between that modern and kind of some of the older style design, and just aesthetically I think it looks really nice. That is really nice.
So for all of you that had been waiting for our trip through the Vision, because I think we did mention it like way back during the boat show, hopefully you learned a few new things, were able to see what you wanted to see there. But in the next episode, I'm going to be going through and taking you through a tour of the finished Max cruise, because we do have the photos from them now. It has been published on their sites, so we have the okay to share them now on ours. So if you are looking forward to seeing what our boat's going to look like when it's all finished, stay tuned for next week when I take you through a tour of that.